I mean, reading a wave, it's almost like, if you're in a band and you're playing in unison with the guitar player, you're not really thinking about, the unison part, right? Here's the guitar, here's the bass, or here's the drums, here's the same, and we're all doing this thing all at once.
Yes, yeah.
And we can't hold on. It's passing right through us, and we're going together in unison. And this is, in a band, very similar to locking in to this, it's like the undescribable that you're not even thinking about, but it's the unison of it.
That was Paz Lenchantin. I'm Jamie Brisick. You're listening to Soundings, brought to you by the Surface Journal. The Surface Journal is a reader-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from Birdwell, FCS, Patagonia, Rainbow, Vans, Vissla, and Getty. More book than magazine, it delivers 120 pages of independent storytelling in each issue, covering the people, culture, travel, and art of surfing. Members receive the magazine 6 times yearly, in addition to unlimited access to the magazine's archives, discounts in its store, plus subscriber-only access to additional digital content, exclusive film screenings, and sponsor offers. To subscribe, please visit surfersjournal.com. So Paz is a musician and a surfer. I met her about 5 years ago when I was writing a profile of Cassia for the Surfer's Journal. Paz was playing a show in Venice with her band, The Entrance Band. Cassia introduced us and then told me that Paz was a hardcore surfer, and that she was also in the band The Pixies. So Paz, we're sitting in your Silver Lake home with a crackling fire in the background. You're a Pixie.
Yes, happy to be.
Yeah, so tell me how you became a Pixie.
Well, I guess it started in 2012. I got a phone call. Actually, I got an email from Josh Freese, the drummer of every band in the world, saying that he heard from Joey that they're looking for a new bass player. And he's like, listen, Paz, if you're not going to do it for yourself, just do it for me. And then I went to audition. I didn't get it straight away. Kim Shattuck got the part, and which was very strange for me because I had this premonition, a story that happened actually when I was at San Onofre, where I was in between if I got it or not, and I'm out surfing, and I see one of my favorite regulars out there, and it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna eat my sandwich and watch him surf. And that day, he lost his board, and he never loses his board. He lost his board, and I was going to the rocks, and I went to go save his board. And as I grabbed it, like I thrusted me back, and I flip it over, and it says Pixies all over the, like Pixies, straight across the board. And I was like, wow, that's a sign.
Yeah.
So I was like, I definitely got this.
Yeah.
And then I didn't get it. And I'm like, well, I was like, I don't understand how I could be off, because it was like, that's a sign, for sure.
Absolutely.
And then 2 months later, they're like, I think we messed up. Will you be a Pixie? And I said, yes. However, I think the first real Pixie experience was when I did my first rehearsal here, actually, down the street from here, and on Fletcher. And I was like going to my first rehearsal as a Pixie. And I remember standing in front of the door, and I'm staring at the door, I think for a good 7 minutes. And I said, once I turn this knob, walk through the door, my ears are going to grow. My wings are going to start going flap. My nose is going to get a little bigger. And I will be officially a Pixie.
Obviously you were a fan of the band before you auditioned.
Of course.
And when you went to the audition, were there like songs that you had rehearsed and sort of worked on?
They gave me 10 songs to work on. Coincidentally, they're songs that we don't really play that much when they're rare songs like Allison. So usually I hear that in rehearsals or in auditions, you play like 1 or 2 songs, but this were like 10.
And were you nervous?
I was so happy. I said to myself when I was in the audition before I went in, you know, if this is my only time that I ever get to play with the Pixies, then so be it. You know, that I got to play one time with the band and I'm going to have the most fun.
Yeah. What's it like standing on stage and playing with the Pixies to a large audience?
What's it like? I mean, I just have such a good time. Every day I'm on stage, I'm like, this is the best job in the world, mainly because you're making people happy. You're nostalgic. People are all of a sudden taken to their, you know, graduation or high school or, you know, music has a way of taking you somewhere away from yourself too. And it's like a magic potion.
Yeah.
And to watch people transform, we're really backlit a lot, you know, so I can see everybody, you know, so I can see when you're not getting the lyrics right. I can see if you didn't wear deodorant. I could see you making out, the kind of beer you're drinking. I can see all these things. But the main thing I see is people having a really great time.
Yeah.
And it's a joy to play.
Yeah. Yeah, there are songs that have been hanging around for like 30 years that are so good, and they're still so good today.
Yeah, it's timeless.
Yeah.
What's good is good.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that, actually, because I'm all about timeless things, like a marble table. It's been around pretty long time, you know, a leather sofa, you know, the basics. It doesn't need to be... you know, Salvador Dali once said, don't concern yourself in being modern.
Nice. So you were born and spent your early years in Argentina?
That's correct.
And then,
born until I was 4.
Okay.
And spent the, 40 some years in Southern California.
Okay. And you come from a family of musicians?
Yes. Parents were both classical pianists. My mother also played the timpani. My father, the head of his orchestra in Mar del Plata. We all studied piano. I studied also violin. Yeah, I was a closet bass player.
Yeah, so how'd you find your way to playing bass?
Well, the first bass was a nylon string guitar that didn't have the 2 top strings. And I would take it to my room and play all my favorite records, which at that time, when I was like 12, 13, I really liked the Beatles. I also really liked Bob Dylan and Pink Floyd. I mean, this was just like when I was 12, 13. And then I think 13 and a half, I went to my first concert. One of my favorite bands at that time was Jane's Addiction. And I snuck into the Ford Theater, hitchhiked, snuck out of the house, and saw them. That was like 1989 or 88, 88. It's the coolest show I've ever seen. And the thing I can remember is going, wow, and they have to do that tomorrow. Like, there's this idea, and that I love, that when we go to a place, at that moment, there is no other day. There isn't tomorrow. It's today, and only today.
Yeah.
And you give yourself as if this is the last day.
Yeah.
And everyone receives it as if, like, you're only here for us. The whole tour was just for us, and there's this exchange that happens. And then when you load up the van, get into the, bus, you're like, oh yeah, and now there's tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you do it all over again.
Yeah. Yes. So when you saw the Jane's Addiction show, was it watching, and Eric Avery, if I'm correct, was the bass player at this time?
Yeah.
So was it watching, or did you have an ear for the bass sound, in the all the instruments? Like,
Well, my first love was Paul McCartney.
Okay.
Because he played the most, to me, catchy melodic lines. And that's what I like. I like melody,
yeah.
not just following the root notes.
So you're turned on by the bass, you go home, you start playing bass regularly. Then did you go and get a proper bass?
So rewind. I know when you say your parents are musicians, and so of course no. Classical musician is different. Okay, so I was like rebelling. I bought this bass because I saved all of my, nickels and dimes. Grandpa comes over from Argentina. He gives us $100 and or 50. I think it was $100 every time, but saved that. Got myself my first bass, which was a very bright red Yamaha bass that I got for like $200. Put it in the closet. And I didn't have an amp. So when everyone would go to bed, I would go to my closet, get the bass out, and put the bass on my two front teeth like this. And your whole head resonates, and you can hear it as if it's like the biggest amplifier.
Wow.
And this is how I practiced.
No kidding.
I'm surprised I still have my two front teeth.
That's an intimate connection with your instrument.
You should try it.
I will try it. Okay, and so you get.
I don't even know how I thought of that, but I think because of the tuning forks. When you have a tuning fork, you put it on your scalp or on your tooth. You're like, oh, that resonates. So that's how I came up with the.
Clever. And then how long between? So then, very soon after that, you start a band.
Let's see. That was I don't know. I guess we're 14 years old. I started a band with my brother and kept playing. I wanted to, I studied film. I wanted to make films because I was like, music was too easy for me. And so I did try. And every time it just led me right back to the music department or some sort. It's like, oh, you're into film? I need some music on your phone. It's like, oh, you're into film? We're doing this musical, and eventually I gave in.
What was your first band called?
Cherry Llama.
And you played parties, bars?
Every single bar, club in LA. Whiskey, A Go-Go, the Roxy, what was it? Raji's, which is like not around anymore. Viper, just I played every single club. And I'm not even allowed in. But then one day, coincidentally, the first time I ever left LA to play a gig, I got a phone call from Joey Santiago of the Pixies. It was 1997 because he was looking for a bass player for his side project, the Martinis. And I did the gig. for a small little tour up to, I think, Portland he never let me pick up my own amp. He was such a gentleman.
Nice.
And then, what was it, 20 years later,
Yeah.
I, hear from him again.
It was fated. It was in the stars. So was there a moment where you sort of realized your music career is really taking off?
Yeah. When I got the platinum record, you mean?
Yeah.
No. Once I joined A Perfect Circle, or Maynard, once Maynard joined A Perfect Circle, Maynard Keenan from Tool. Tool was kind of taking some time off. I started playing music with Billy Howardell in his little house in North Hollywood. And yeah, Maynard came into one of our rehearsals and said, "Hey, you guys need a lead singer?" And I knew once he joined the band, it was going to take off. And it did. So I went from playing the Coconut Teaser or whatever to, playing all over the world overnight.
When you say all over the world,
All over the world.
Yep. And you were probably playing festivals where you were playing to massive numbers of people.
Yeah, we were the first band on the main stage of the very first Coachella.
Wow.
In 1999.
So that kind of in architecture they'd call it scaling up, right? Like you're designing, small homes and then you do a hotel. When you sort of jumped into playing on that,
I felt like a hypocrite.
Uh-huh.
I'll be honest. There's a point. I mean, at this point, I'm 23, 24. And I'm the youngest one. I'm the only girl. And I don't know, everyone has such a history. Every band member of Perfect Circle has done 5 other projects. And then I go on tour, and we're on tour with 9 Inch Nails, and everyone's such a professional, and they all have these stories about being in the van and traveling and and I did not have this story. And there was something I felt was missing in my experience of being in a band. If music is a sphere, at this time it was just a circle for me.
So it was almost as if you
perfect circle.
No, but did you have the sense of you've hit the big time kind of too quickly?
I missed the in between part.
Yeah.
And I want the in between part. Then something tragic happened. My brother passed away, and I had to slow it all down. Just slow it down, or go backwards, or I don't know, reevaluate.
Yeah.
And at this time, so I took his truck, drove it to Kentucky. And I decided I'm just going to learn how to fiddle. I just brought my violin and a couple of pairs of shoes and clothes. And I'm just going to fiddle now. And then I would drive to Nashville from there. And then that's how I met David Berman.
Okay. How old were you when your brother passed away?
I was 29.
Okay. Yeah, I have a similar story. When I was 21, my brother was 23. He died suddenly, and I was a pro surfer. I was just going around the world. I was just beginning to be a small time surf star and having a grand sense of myself. And then suddenly this thing happened that just floored me, and it was a big thing in my life because I continued on the tour, and it was almost as if I just had to sort of tuck this grief away and just keep going, soldiering forward, But it's interesting, and I often thought about that. When I was trying to work my way through it, I was often thinking of what is the great athlete would be someone that can turn tragedy into triumph, somehow just move that thing inside of me and bring out this greatness as an athlete. But I'm curious because making music is, to my mind, so professional surfing competitive surfing. It's a great form of self-expression. It's dance in many, many ways, but it's more abstract than writing lyrics or writing a song, right?
Well, you can't fake surfing.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And do you know what I mean by that?
Well, it's your personality is expressed when you ride a wave.
Yeah, you can't if you didn't know how to play music and you went to the piano and you played something for me, I can't deny that sounds like music to me. You know, like that you just played something.
Yeah.
And maybe you would play something by ear, but when you're out in the water, how you get on your board is going to be a little different than everyone else. But it's like the way you get on your board is the only way that you can get on your board.
Yeah.
Right. And this is something that is very difficult for musicians to find their own voice.
Sure.
You know.
But I guess the question I was getting, I'm sort of leaning toward. No, that's okay. I was sort of leading towards. Did your brother's passing change the way you made music or played music or wrote songs?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, at this time, I basically I had for the first time what people call a phantom limb. And this phantom limb is basically a cavity that needs to be filled. That wasn't there before. Mm-hmm. And so now the thing that I'm attracted to is my brother, you know. And what's interesting is my brother passed away the same day as Johnny Cash. And the same exact day. And, at this point, I knew Johnny Cash as his songs, but I didn't really know his story. Mm-hmm. This is before the movie, okay? Mm-hmm. Movie came a couple of years after. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, I'm in Kentucky. I'm going to just buy every single Johnny Cash book. And he's written a couple of autobiographies. And I couldn't believe that in the first, by chapter 3, he was talking about his brother and the loss of his brother. Mm-hmm. And how every day from that point, everything he did was for him. Mm-hmm. And how it created him. And the way that he dealt with the loss of his brother was through his dreams. Hmm. And he would say that his brother would always grow with him in his dreams. Mm. And that really helped me.
That's beautiful. So you were a surfer at the time of your brother's passing, and you...
So with surfing, it's like, now I'm going into my psychedelic rock band phase, and not phase. We did it for like 12 years, and we started to get more in the surf scene, and I realized like what a dream it would be to just be in a band. I got this like school bus and just surf and play music. Like that to me is like, that's all I want to do, and that's all that I did for this period of time. I was living in San Clemente, and we had a recording studio in the basement. Yeah, I would just surf every day.
Was surfing a way of processing and dealing, grieving, I guess?
Actually, it was kind of, there was a friend of mine who was dying of cancer. We're getting really grim here. Who used to surf every single day for years. And he couldn't surf anymore. And I told him that I was going to surf for him. And I was going to tell him how the waves were that day. And I was going to tell him all the stories that I could possibly, I wanted to bring the ocean to him. Mm-hmm. For a whole year, I was just dedicated to bring him the ocean and tell him how, all of my experiences. Mm-hmm. And it was thrilling. And he wanted to know every detail, you know?
This is one of the great cliches, but I also find it kind of interesting. But the kind of music surfing connection, let's call it, would you surf in the morning and then go play music later and feel almost a sort of connection between the two, or a kind of crossover?
I would do sunrise, sunset, and every day. And rhythm is it's the most crucial, fundamentally the most important thing a human being has with them is just rhythm. And it's something where also could possibly be the reason why I believe there is a right and wrong is because of rhythm, where you either have rhythm or you don't, and you can't ever explain how to have rhythm. And this is what makes me believe there is a right and a wrong in life. You know? But yeah, there is. That said, there is a relationship between music
Yeah.
and, I mean, reading a wave. It's something that it's almost like, you know, if you're in a band and you're playing in unison with the guitar player, you're not really thinking about, you know, the unison part, right? But you're in tune.
You're riding the.
Here's the guitar, here's the bass, or here's the drums, here's the same, and we're all doing this thing all at once.
Yes, yeah.
And we can't hold on. It's passing right through us, and we're going together in unison. And this is, in a band, very similar to locking in to this, it's like the undescribable that you're not even thinking about, but it's the unison of it.
Yeah. What kind of surfboards do you ride?
Well, I have a Gato, which was my first surfboard. I think it was Dano. But yeah, I love my Gato.
Longboard?
Yep. Yeah, 9-0.
And where do you normally surf?
Well, now I go to Mexico. I have a little spot in Mexico that I try to go. I'm going now on Tuesday, Saladitas. And I've just got a little piece of land there. It's a little bit hard for me here. There's just too many people.
Yeah, serious crowds in Los Angeles County.
Yeah, and to get there now, I used to live very close to. I have to get in a car. It's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
Of driving.
Yeah.
And it's not the same for me with time. And so now I spend my complete time when I go to Mexico, and I enjoy that.
Yeah. Warmer water, too.
Warm water.
Your friend Cassia Mirador, how did you guys meet?
So I was at Sano, and she came in hot, man. She was just like, had a camera, these like gorgeous babes on top of a car, and the Roxy chicks are here, or what, at that time. And I was like, wow. I've never seen anything like it at that point. I knew who she was. I was a very quiet person in, Sano. I was always by myself. If the waves weren't good, I was sewing some board covers for my, from some Moroccan, tapestry that I found or something. And, but this day I remember I was watching her, and it was hot, and and there was this van, and the door was open. I was very tired. And so I went to the back of the van just to lay my head, and, the van starts moving, and I wake up, and I'm on the freeway, and I pop my head up. I think I was wearing like a sombrero or something. And she's like, hey. She's like, hey, Cassia, who's back there? I was like, hi, I'm Paz. She's like, hey, well, So I'm basically met her in her car driving to Oceanside, where she had a house there. And she's like, well, it looks like we're going surfing together. And we went to Cardiff, and she's become one of my best friends.
That's so great.
She's one of the greatest people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. She's a grand person.
Yeah, I see that. And I've known her for many, many years because I grew up surfing Malibu. So I remember Cassie when she was a teenager.
Yeah.
But what a great friend to have, and what an interesting kind of entree into like surfing at the highest level, right? I mean, she's so incredibly skilled, and she's her surf
smile.
Her smile and her charisma, and her surf odyssey has been really an interesting one, because instead of pursuing contests, she's kind of gone to all the great, more like pursued it in a ride the great waves around the world and travel and experience cultures and places, as opposed to being focused solely on winning contests.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I love about what I do is that I play, right? I play music. I play my bass. I play the violin. I play the piano. And this word, describing the thing that I do. And when I see Cassia, she brings the play into what she does.
Yes, I see that too.
Yeah. She plays the board. She plays the wave. She plays surfing. She does it like effortlessly. That it, you don't want to ask any questions. You want to just like, you don't want to know how the magician did the trick.
Yes, yeah.
Sometimes people want to know, and then other times you're like, I'd rather not know.
Yeah. So did music come easy for you, or was there a point where you were kind of like woodshedding, as the term goes? Like, was there a time when you were like, I got to work really, really hard at this thing to get it right?
Well, you never want to ask a ballerina to show her feet. It's like one of those things where I want to say it's easy because I want things to look easy. I don't want anyone to see me struggle.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
You just, I like to say it's easy. You know why it's easy? Because I love it. Passion has a big role in the life of anything you do. Without that, it might be torture.
You're listening to Soundings with Jamie Brisick. This podcast and the Surfer's Journal are made possible due to TSJ's subscribing members and through the sponsorship of Birdwell, FCS, Patagonia, Rainbow, Vans, Vissla, and Getty. To learn more about the Surfer's Journal and its sponsors, or to subscribe, visit surfersjournal.com. Now back to our guest, Paz Lenchantin. When you think about your career and playing many, many shows, what's the most fantastic moment you've ever had on stage?
I would say, I'm not sure if this answers your question at all, but once my family came to Southern California from Argentina, we would, as a family, in the summer, go to the Hollywood Bowl since I was a little kid. And we would, bring our picnic, and that was our outing. And, there's dollar seats in the way back, and we would just go there and watch the symphony. Never as a kid did I ever think I was one day going to play the Hollywood Bowl for my family. And, that was, even though I've played bigger places and bigger things, or, to me, playing the Hollywood Bowl meant a lot to me.
That's so nice. How long ago was that?
That was with Pixies, and it was my first, 2014.
Nice. Is there a song that you most look forward to playing when you're playing shows with the Pixies?
Well, we don't do set lists, and there's a lot of songs, and we don't talk. So we get through like 35 songs. There's different ones like that I like on tours. For some reason, I'll get excited about it. Javelina, sometimes I really get excited about, or Anna. I love Anna. ANA. It stands for anagram. I don't know.
I didn't know that.
Because it's actually not an anagram. What do you call it? What do you call when the first letter of the sentence creates a word going down?
I should know this, but I don't.
Well, it spells surfer.
Okay. Wow.
These lines of the lyrics.
Oh, that's so interesting.
But it's not an anagram. It's something else.
Yeah. You recently directed a Pixies video with surfing in it.
Yeah. Our friend Cassia and our friend passed away when we were Pixies making a record. I was in Toronto. And when I got the news that Desiree had taken her last wave, she was county line.
Yeah.
And the way the lifeguard said, she came out of the water, asked him what time it was. She was going to go to work. And he told her the time, and she's like, one more.
Wow.
Yeah. One more.
And she went back out, rode her last wave, and had an accident and passed away.
Yeah, the fin got her.
Yeah.
It I think slipped, thrust it into her and gone fast, just like that.
Wow. I remember when that happened, and at that time, I was writing a profile of Cassia Midor for the Surfer's Journal, and she was close friends with Desiree. And one night we all went night surfing in Venice, and Desiree was there, and she was great, and she was happy, and she was enjoying.
I loved her so much.
And then it was like a couple months later, I heard this story, and I couldn't believe it. And then but I saw the video, and it's a great tribute.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
She was one of the things I loved about her. You know, when I was in Santa, you know, I would go to Santa every single day. You know, no matter what. And sometimes there's no one there because it's totally blown out and there's no reason for anyone to be there, but I'm still there. And that the first time I met her, she came by herself from LA or wherever, you know, I think she was living in Venice. And I was like, well, what's she doing here? Is this, you know, shittiest blown out day, you know, the wind, and it's like, and she just pops up. It's just me and her, you know, and she's looking at me because I'm sewing myself a surfboard cover, you know. I was just like, you know, just sewing, and she's by herself, and there's this kindred. There's something about solo surfers just going without knowing. You know, sometimes you just don't even want to know what the forecast is.
Yeah.
And I love that she was there.
So you live in Los Angeles. We're in your house right now. The crackling fireplace is
Should I put another log in?
Sure.
Firewood are like needles on a record. This is pine wood. I got it at 7-Eleven. Crackles.
Yeah.
And pops.
And it looks like it burns really quickly.
If we were playing an iPod, you would almost think that you're listening to a record.
Yes, exactly. It's a nice touch. I like that. Here's a question. So I think one of I have plenty of friends who are touring musicians, and the more I look at their lifestyles and knowing firsthand from many years ago, and also have many friends now who are traveling pro surfers, like there's a real similarity in being a touring surfer and a touring musician. Are you most comfortable on the road, or are you most comfortable in, LA, having a routine in your house?
Everything is part of it. I can't do one without the other.
Okay.
I do not understand how people can live in LA full time. Like, I don't have that experience. I love LA. I love Los Angeles. Southern California is my favorite place. But I love it because I leave.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a similar experience.
And the pandemic, I'm like, what do people do? Like, how do you just stay here? It becomes very small and very big. Like, you think the world is your, this is it.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yes. I'm so grateful. I grew up in LA, and I'm so grateful. Surfing was kind of like my vehicle to get out of town and to kind of go see the world. And at the time I was doing it chasing surf contests, but I did this for many, many years. And then I kind of realized later, like, what I was really doing was experiencing other cultures and realizing that there are different value systems than the one that's here in the USA in general and in Los Angeles in particular. And so I traveled, lived in other countries, lived in New York for many, many years, been back in LA for about 9 years. And I love it here, but I often feel sort of at odds with the value system. I'm there's a lot about it I love, but then there's a lot about it that I do not relate to. But the only reason why I have that perspective is because I went around the world surfing.
Yeah. I love seeing things grow, plants, my niece. There is something about being somewhere from the beginning of your time. I got to see, riots, I've been here since 1978.
Yeah. Riots, earthquakes,
all
fires.
of it, and there is like a hope. I mean, I used to say that that's when I bring my Argentinian cards. Like, where are you from? I would say Argentina. Because people didn't take you seriously as an LA artist. And there's like some sort of stereotype at that time. If you were from LA, you weren't taken seriously.
Yeah.
So you have this strange relationship with it, or I did. And now, but I always rooted for Los Angeles, Southern California. California is the most beautiful, but Southern California is, to me, the greatest place on the planet.
Yeah, we have a lot here. We definitely do. Where does surfing fit into your life at this point, or how does it fit into your life?
Like I said, it's now become something I do in Mexico, and I really enjoy it. But I don't need to, I'm happy with where I am. I never, one of the things I hear, like even my father would say, no, my fingers are not, I have to do his accent or else I can't. Yeah. My fingers pass. It's just not the way they used to be, it's just not, And there's this sadness I hear from people who feel they regress, right? And like you're only getting, you can't get better if your body isn't when you were like 20 and all of this. And this was bullshit. The whole point to me is the acceptance of where you are.
Yes, acquiescing, I think.
And I appreciate that moment and my relationship to that moment without the judgment of yesterday or 10 years ago or this or 20, it's where I am with it.
Yeah, I think that's nice. I try to tell myself that all the time, but my ego gets in the way.
I know. Well, you're a pro.
Well, it's also a thing of what is interesting that I find is surfing does rely upon a certain level of athleticism, flexibility, strength, all these. There are certain very physical things that I definitely have felt dwindled compared to when I was 25. However, I'm a writer, and as a writer, I feel like I'm getting stronger every day. So I don't.
Nice.
So I have this thing where,
Sure.
like, oh, I can, be a little more couch bound or a little more sedentary, but my mind can be doing somersaults. Whereas surfing, it requires me to like put a lot of time in to get the thing back. And I don't always have that time because it's not my priority at this stage of life. And I would imagine, I'm guessing for you, your priority is making music.
Well, I mean, yes, it definitely is. And it's never, again, going back to the sphere, I'm starting to now like look at the sphere this other way, music is never boring.
Yeah.
There's always something to learn. Minimalism is definitely my obsession right now. Less is more, kind of, and that's going back to the surfing part, or like, where, how can you translate that into surfing, where minimalism, where it's like, I could show you a piece right now, or like John Cage, he's written these pieces that are basically silence, or there's 3 notes in the span of 3 minutes, and you say, well, anyone could do that, right? And so there's this expression where there's minimalism, and I think there is that in surfing as well.
Yeah,
For
I like
me,
this. I like this.
I appreciate the less is more. And for me, it's slowing things down and seeing things in a different way, where it's not so much about you.
I love this so much. When I was a beginning surfer, I was really short, but I always surfed in a really low squat, and so my face was like right at the water, and to cut
Going
across,
fast.
yeah, and it was like you just watch the water stream past. And sometimes now I will do the version of minimalism, which is like I'm just not going to turn. I'm going to sit. I'm going to get in a low crouch and just go straight, and just
Exactly.
enjoy. I love this idea.
Yeah.
What do you have? Do you have musical heroes, like when you were kind of on your way up? Were there musicians that you looked up to and went, that's the music I want to make, that's the kind of figure I want to be?
I really enjoy watching people on the stage or on the side of the stage. I know it's not for sound, it's not. I like it. I like to hear what musicians have on their monitors, or what pedals they're using, how they pick their, how they grab their pedal. All these little details. I enjoy watching the performances of musicians, even if because, we have the records and it's like, that's the studio. This is how they want to sound really forever, is like the record. So when I go see bands, I like to get in their like area, and just really see how they navigate their songs. And navigating, going back to, comparing or whatever, music and surfing, how you navigate your music is also how you are trained to navigate your day. Right? So it's like, that's when you are, you spend all this time surfing, and you have this knee-jerk reaction that surfing is teaching you how to navigate. And with music, same thing.
Right.
And so now, with the minimalism, again, it's like less is more, less clutter, feng shui, how do you have this like clarity, with how you have your room, how you have your space, and it's all a reflection of how you navigate your time on this earth.
Yeah.
Is, my tool is music, yours is surfing, there's painters, writers, art is so important. It should definitely be in every single public school. I don't know why they took it out, because it teaches us how to navigate our time on the planet.
Yes, it's this sort of dance. And I've definitely noticed, I remember when I was a young kind of up and coming and ambitious surfer, and the surfers that I looked up to, I would watch them from the moment they pulled into the parking lot and how they changed into their wetsuit and how they waxed their board and how they trotted or walked or sauntered up the beach. And
how you hold your, how you're holding your instrument. I just think that like, it's a strange, I'm not sure if we're supposed to watch, it's more, it's like the difference between doing it and watching it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes what I rather do is just look at a wave and picture myself on it.
I have that same experience.
And those are pretty cool waves that I catch.
I know, I live in Malibu, and I live in Point Dume, which is close to Zuma Beach, which is one of these long, straight beaches. And some afternoons the waves will be horrible, and instead of surfing I'll go for a bike ride, but my eyes will be on the surf the entire time, and I'll ride along as if I were like mind surfing the waves, and I will ride that kind of mile up and mile back. And I sometimes feel like there's almost like this vicarious buzz that I get out of it. Like I've surfed for so long that I'm actually feeling it, and kind of it's translating, and it's like shifting my nervous system as if I were actually doing it.
The only time that I was able to do both, play and visually watch myself surfing the wave that I'm not, it was in Biarritz. Mm-hmm. It was in a festival, and the waves were I was playing on stage with Molly Lewis, the whistler. It was the sun, it was just setting, middle of summer, and the waves were so glassy and perfect. And I was, there was a part of me that was like, maybe I'll just not play. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really fun, but like, I really wanted, but then I was like, you know what, because I was playing violin, I'll play the violin and just picture myself on those waves.
Nice. I'm a huge fan of Silver Jews, David Berman. Later, the last record was Purple Mountains, but I know you played on a Silver Jews record. How was that?
Tangle with Numbers.
Yeah.
When I was in Kentucky, I would drive to Nashville because I wanted to connect myself with musicians there. I wanted to fiddle. Mm-hmm. And I met David. I mean, I could tell you that story, but it's like a whole hour and a half of a whole other podcast that we could do with how I met him. But we met, and I really miss him. But anyway, he says, I really want you to play fiddle and banjo on my record. Okay, he's from Nashville. All right. I'm like, David, why don't you just knock on your neighbor's door? I mean, I'm sure there's maybe, or like someone in your neighbor, like, I'm from LA. You don't want an LA fiddler and a banjoer, right? He's like, no. I don't want the Nashville studio people. I think that you would do something that those guys, like they're just, they're going to just do the same thing. Then I don't want that. I want you to do it. And I said, fine. This might be one of the most nerve-wracking. I'm in Nashville. I barely know how to play banjo at this point. I had a banjo and I was like teaching myself banjo. And And all of a sudden, I'm like, there's producers produce like all, it's like, I've never been more nervous in a session in my life. That I call my buddy. I said, Guy, how do you tune a banjo? He's like, what do you, I was like, I'm at this session. I don't even think I know how to tune a banjo. Like, what are the notes I started to get? So he's like, pause, slow it down. Just do and play what sounds good. Going back to the basics. It's like, tune it however you want to tune it. I was like, you mean I could do that? I could just like, you think that would be okay if I did that? Just do it, And so I did. I tuned it in my own way and went in there and did it my own way. And he loved it. And yeah, we became very, very close friends. Such a special being.
Yeah. I have such fond memories of, I never met any of the band members, although I'm meeting you now, but I listened to all those records for so long and I was so into them. And I have a real ear for lyrics. And I think he's one of the great lyricists of the last, 50 years.
Yes. He's written great books too, poetry books. I have a couple of his books, but Actual Air is really a beautiful book.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Purple Mountains, hard to listen.
Well, it was so interesting because I got so into it.
Because it's so beautiful.
Yes. Well, when I first started listening to it, I thought it was so great, and I thought it was so funny and all these things. But then later he took his life, and then when you listen to it now, you can almost sense this like goodbye note in this record.
I know, you just gave me the chills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
One of the things, going back to like, one of the things that always affected me is like is the songs that would pop in my head when I was surfing.
Yes.
And it's like, it's different than land. It's like, when you get on a board, your feet now are no longer in land. So you're now like almost like a different, it's like and music in my mind changes. I wasn't thinking of that song.
Yeah.
In land.
Yeah. I that's so interesting.
The Velvet Underground comes to my mind a lot when I'm surfing for some reason.
Very nice. I've been surfing so long now that I've watched it grow, and a lot of people who I find really interesting have been drawn to surfing. And as a writer, I've kind of written profiles of so many people who I admire tremendously, and they might be visual artists, musicians, etc., writers, and then surfing is this sort of shared thing. And my kind of stock phrasing is that like what golf is for doctors and lawyers, surfing is for artists. And I think maybe it is about the water and the movement and the fact that there's no right angles, there's nothing underneath you, and it's almost a metaphor or parallels the creative experience of like a blank canvas or going into your room and going into your studio and going, I'm going to come up with this, I'm going to just start playing.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the, when this wave, when you're consciously connected to the fact that this wave has traveled.
Yeah.
Thousands of miles.
It's poetic.
Right? And here it is on its last breath.
Yeah.
Let's say.
Yes.
It has reached its end. And we are there in that perfect moment.
Yes.
It's very last.
I like it. Thanks. And it was really fun to chat. Soundings is produced by me, Jamie Brisick, and Jonathan Shifflett. You can find it on Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. Our theme song is Ocean Parkway by the Gun Trusinski Duo. You can find more of their music on Spotify. Soundings is brought to you by the Surfer's Journal, a reader-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from Birdwell, FCS, Patagonia, Rainbow, Vans, Vissla, and Getty. The Surfer's Journal is published 6 times a year. Along with the magazine, subscribers receive unlimited access to every article from its 30-year archive, as well as members-only access to additional digital content, exclusive film screenings, and sponsor offers. For more information, visit surfersjournal.com. Thanks again for listening to Soundings, and we will see you again.